And we've got all the right in the world on our side. And there ain't no reason to be afraid. And there ain't no reason to not take the challenge dead on. Because I'm going to tell you who we come from, folks. We don't come from some weak, jellyback, spineless people. That's not who we come from. None of us. And it doesn't matter what color you are, what nation your folks hail from, how much money you got. We all share the same name. We are Americans. And at Bunker Hill, there was Americans. And at Fredericksburg and Gettysburg, there was Americans. And at Iwo Jima, raising that flag on Suribachi, it was Americans. And at Pork Chop Hill, there was Americans. Khe Sanh, there was Americans. And on 9/11, there was Americans who ran towards those burning buildings. That is who you share your heritage with. You do not share your heritage with a weak and ineffective people who cower at the sight of trouble. You share your heritage with a strong and brave people who are determined to hold on to their freedom and for the freedom of future generations. Guys, it's time for us to stand up and be that generation. It's time for us to stand strong and proud and remember who we are. That we are Americans. And as long as we stand as the vanguard of freedom in this nation, freedom will survive. Not only survive, it will thrive. So guys, it's time to put on our packs. It's time to fix those bayonets. It's time to get ready. We got a fight on our hands. And our fight is not for us, for all those generations that's going to come behind us. Let's save America, folks.
We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, that they are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness.
Hey, folks, welcome to the program. We're going to have an interesting program today. You know, the world changed basically overnight. We're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about Donald Trump, well, and facing off what's the merchant of death. I'll tell you about that as we head forward. This is going to be a very interesting program for you. Some of you may have heard some pieces of this of me talk about before, but now I'm going to give you some really in-depth details. Immediately following this broadcast, though, I'm going to do a very special locals presentation. If you're on Rumble, you'll see a little red oval that says join. You can do that to join my locals. By the way, at my locals, it's how you support all my work that I do on behalf of President Trump. When it comes to what happened in the elections, how do we have prosecutable evidence? You know, it's a long, drawn-out process, but that's when you support locals, you're supporting that. But anyway, click that red oval. You we'll have an interesting discussion. I think you will significantly be interested in what I have to say. Now, today's program, right, is brought to you by the fine folks at CB Distillery. Look, I've got this for you. I'm going to make it real simple. There's 2 million people that enjoy CB Distillery, and I'm one of them, right? My bomb go-to, all right, right there. The CBD relief stick, right there. That is, let me get my cameras to grab a hold of that. Hang on, let me touch it. Maybe it'll do it. That's the bomb stuff right there. This enables me to sleep. Yeah, they have CBD that will work for you to sleep, but this one, you know, I was thinking about all kinds of things. You know, they just recovered. They had a big helicopter skiing accident several years ago. 3 people disappeared. They finally found one of them. 2 others still missing. And I think about my life. I've been shot, blown up, rolled, tumbled, survived aircraft, controlled crash. My body from head to toe, right? has suffered immense pain and wounds. When you look at my face, some people always comment about my teeth. My whole upper jaw, basically, my teeth, is synthetic, total implant. And I can tell you from horrible wounds, war wounds, that this, where you live with tremendous pain. My jaw was decaying in my head. I got all kinds of bone implants, all kinds of stuff, but it was horrible, right? If you were to look at all my fingers, you can see the crookedness in them, right? If you were to look at my hands, most of y'all have known over the years that one of the things I've been nursing for a very long time was where my fingernails were lifted off my right hand, right? And so I know pain intimately. And also at the same time, you should know something about me. I am terrified of opiates. Terrified. Mainly because I've seen people get addicted to them. And so I've had bones set, stitching, where I'd rather sit there and watch them do it, stitch me back together, than even have opiates or anything like that involved to deaden it. But living with pain has been a part of my life for an exceptionally long time. I just found this too late. You know why I found it too late? Does my video look weird today? What is it? What makes my video look weird today? Is it because my hair's gone? People are saying in chat, somebody just applied the roll-on. Anyway, I wish I'd have found it earlier. I wish I would have found this earlier. Let me refocus my camera. That's how you do it, right? I'll focus, make it refocus. Maybe that'll work. Who knows? Anyway, I suffered needlessly. So, but I got to tell you, as much as I wouldn't do opiates, I was a total chicken shit over CBD because I don't do drugs either. Could you imagine me on drugs? Yeah, I've smoked marijuana a couple times, truly. Never done cocaine, never done speed, anything like that, right? Because, boy, could you imagine me? I'm intense enough. Anyway, I don't even like having a buzz. I've only been drunk maybe twice in my whole life. First time was at 16. Second time, I guess I was only about 20, whatever. Anyway. And so I stayed away from pain relief, right? In the CBD realm because I was terrified of CBD. Not terrified. I was just one of these people. Oh, that's marijuana. That's bad. That's bad stuff. I was just a dumbass. I got to tell you that. Yeah, you can't imagine me on cocaine. I can only envision myself, right? Be like a super mega fat chick in corduroy pants trying to run the 100-yard dash. My thighs would rub together and I'd bust into flames, right? I'd just do it. And plus, one of my very dear friends, Major League Baseball star, World Series All-Star, lost his life to drugs. He couldn't kick it. And I watched what he did. Ken Caminiti, you probably know, tough warrior. And so for around me, I've always been afraid of these things. And so I equated it inappropriately to CBD. I did. Some people are saying in chat, don't worry, I did enough for all of us. I know. I just don't think I'm glad I stayed away from it. God was telling me to stay away from it. But what I did is I let it what's the word? Creep into staying away from products like this. Okay. And I was stupid and I shouldn't have done it. And I shouldn't have done it. By the way, if you're seeing a frame rate refresh issue, just hit refresh on your camera. Some of you are saying it's kind of happened. Just hit refresh on your camera. Anyway, CBD changed my life. And I freaking had to be in my 50s to find it. How stupid was that? And it was only because I just related it to smoking dope. That's how bigoted I was. I could have saved my father years of pain. He had war wounds as well, took many bullets in his bodies and knees. I could have saved him immense pain. Anyway, don't be like me. 2 million people use this stuff, natural ingredients, no fluff, no fillers, just pure cannabinoid products. I was a stupid idiot. I was a stupid idiot. Don't be that idiot. Here's a code you can scan. This stuff's the bomb. Whether you need sleep, whether you need stress reduction, whether you need pain reduction, whatever. I wake up at night many times hurting. Usually goes along with the pain for me. It puts me back in a traumatic event. I relive it. And in many ways, I can wake up from a dream thinking I'm fighting my way out of a locked room where I've been locked in it. And I got 8 people between me and the door. You know what I mean? And you got to battle your way out. And I'll wake up from that dream. I'm always hurting in that. Well, of course, it's my damn arms and legs and stuff. But I'll roll over, grab this. I kid you not. Roll it on. And pain stops. Now, you got to understand, for me, that kind of goes with pain and sleep kind of goes together. If you were to talk to my ex-wife, you will find many times when things hit me late at night, the pain hits me, dreams hit me, it's accompanied with night sweats or whatever. More than one time, I would literally grab her, toss her out of bed, rip off the covers. I'm still asleep, thinking I'm looking for an attacker or a device or snakes or whatever the case may be, right? And it can be hard. And it was all related to my sleep and other pains. This stuff set me free. I wish I wouldn't have waited to my late 50s. This stuff set me free. And I'm not polluting my body at the same time. I can't rave enough about it. Anyway, look, this isn't going to last long. You got a very short time. Stay on it. CBDistillery.com. CBDistillery.com. Use your promo code. Get 25% off. I didn't mean to go that far into it, but it was just it. Why? Because I was thinking about pain. And I had one of them the other night, and I grabbed it, and I rolled it on, and I'm telling you, within seconds, I'm out. I don't even lay there with it throbbing anymore. It is that fast. I can't explain it. I can't explain it other than it's transdermal, so it's topical. But the other stuff, you used to wait for something to get in your body, to get to the area of pain, to go through your gut system or whatever. This is kind of like laser focus. Yeah, laser focus. Anyway, also, hey, you're going to want to do this. Silver's almost at $50. Gold well over 4,000. Come on, folks. Get your brain fed. That's all I want you to do. Now's the time to protect your money with gold and silver, right? Get your free gold and silver kit today. The markets are going nuts. Things are cooking. Governments are storing gold more than ever. You've got to literally take care of it. Gold's at 4,062. Some people are, just paying attention, saying, I've doubled my money with silver. Yeah, remember when I started telling you about this, gold was 1,400, 1,500. Nobody believed when I said it's going to go to 2,000. Now it's at 4. But this is not about investing in gold. Something totally different. It's a covering your ass with gold. Basically, if you have a IRA, 401k, etc., do it. Anyway, folks, if any of you are having any issues with audio or video, right? I think I've got everything set on my end. You should be able to say you should be able to see, if my lips aren't in sync, reset it. I have I have the thin filter applied and I have the young filter applied. Anyway, I think you're going to learn something very deep today. I really do. I think you're going to learn something very good today. We're going to talk about Donald Trump and the Merchant of Death. The world has changed in a big way, but let's see what happens and goes with it. Okay, share this program right now. We're going to get started, and I think you're going to enjoy this journey.
Warning, the following program has been rated Gilligaff and is intended for open-minded audiences. If the truth offends you, or if you are allergic to focused intensity, intellectual athleticism, or the occasional F-bomb or even irreverent humor, please switch off now. If your delicate sensibilities need to be worried about or addressed, might we recommend the Underwater Basket Weaving channel to you? Otherwise, sit back, enjoy the wisdom, insight, and wicked sense of humor.
Cut the crap. How many times a day do you want to say that to politicians, the elite, the loony liberals, the fake news media, and the gender-confused, emotional socialist snowflake crowd? Cut the crap is your secret weapon for fighting for our freedoms and our great republic. It all begins with a massive mental enema, freeing you from the toxic news and politically correct views, which constipate your consciousness with stinking thinking. Your host, Joe Von Hutton Pulitzer. He's known for calling out politicians and telling them to cut the crap. You've seen him on virtually every television network and listened to him on Coast to Coast Radio. And now he's here to help you learn to fight for America. Culture, race, and American politics. They all have one thing in common. They all need to cut the crap. Now, here's your host, Joe Von Hutton Pulitzer.
Okay, folks, we're going to talk about Donald Trump and the Merchant of Death. I know you've got questions out there. Let me tell you where I was. This was not what I was going to talk about this morning, but when things happened last night, I flexed. You need to understand this story. I was going to continue on because I got to tell you, this Jewish hate BS is really beginning to piss me off. And we're listening to conservative broadcasters say, well, everybody hates Jews. The young people hate Jews. And in 10 years, everybody will hate Israel and it won't matter. And I'm thinking, you idiots, you don't even understand what the con is. And so that's what I was going to talk about. But things changed. Things changed in this process, right? Oh, by the way, if you're getting your envelopes in the mail for voting, etc., there will be in a lot of places a QR code. Let me show you, kind of like this, right? On your envelopes. That's standard. In fact, on your ballot, if you were to look at it, there may be up to 6 different codes on it. And it's everything from how the post office tracks it, the routing information for the mail and how it sorts it electronically, to the franking or stamping on it, and they debit or credit money down to your election office, how they track envelopes and stuff. There's nothing nefarious in it. A Q code does not change your mail or anything, period. It doesn't. You know that when I invented the technology that allows this to be read as routing, which I started in 96, I've got 207 patents that control these portfolios that have all been licensed out on all Androids, all iPhones, etc. You got to understand what it is. It is no different than when you go to like rumble.com. You can remember Rumble, but people don't, they tend to be enumerate in ways. They don't remember the numbers underneath, like 104.01.06.0101. Get it? That's all it is. When you look at a Q code, basically it's a hard routing information going to a server, etc. On the envelope part, it can basically be seen and pinged and said, hey, Yanni got her envelope. Quit thinking Q codes change your vote, or they change the Q codes. In fact, that's how I got involved in all the election stuff. I got a call from the White House. People were saying, okay, you're Mr. Q code, right? Digital convergence, bringing all this about, giving computerized, all this stuff. People are telling us that the Q code goes in one way and comes back out and changes. It's just not true. It's just not true. Now, can it be used nefariously? Yeah, it could be used nefariously, but it's on the database side. It doesn't change anything. Okay? And yes, the problem is nobody trusts anything anymore. And there you go. That's what the system needed to do to create chaos. And we've been in the middle of it, all of us. And we're going to talk about that chaos, right? We're going to talk about that chaos. Just one more thing on ballot tracking, okay? A lot of people say ballot tracking is bullshit. I can understand why you say that. I mean, I sit here, I'm the guy that brought you the platform where every piece of paper in the world can talk this way, right? It can take you to your payment. When you go through an airport and you don't have a boarding pass anymore, you do it at the phone, you show the QR code. That's it. We lived in a world way back when where if you look at Sumitomo, one of the largest corporations in the world, with investors in my technology and company, the code was used in the format you kind of see today, was used as Toyota, inventory in, inventory out, etc. It never really meant anything outside, just like your code, which you'll see on. So I made a barcode mean the internet and gave it a different code where you could take it elsewhere, right? Now your phones do it automatically. Those didn't mean anything except inventory in, inventory out. What was the product description? It was my technology that turned it into a communication platform where it takes you to the destination, okay? So you have to understand that. But if you were going to use a barcode or a QR code for evil, and I'll just digress a bit, then yes, if they're tracking the ballots through the mail, they know what was delivered. They also know what wasn't delivered. So technically, what's not going to show back up. Get it? That's where they can do it underneath. But also, if you understand how to use barcodes and codes, you understand it's a great audit tool. So I could literally, with the envelopes, I can look at a neighborhood. I can take a neighborhood. I can understand who was the postal carrier, what was the route, etc. And that's why we wanted these things in the Arizona audit. Why? Let me tell you why. Because I'd already confirmed in understanding that mail routing code that yes, these ballots went to addresses on the street. Now, remember that code you see on the envelope is how the machines sort it in the postal carrier's box. So it knows the direction the postal carrier's driving. They're going to start on the right side. It's going to start at this number house, and it goes boom, 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 and goes down the street. Your post people don't go all around. It's highly organized. That's done by the tracking of codes. And so the machine spit it out into that tub in the order that the postal carrier will carry it. But how can these codes be an asset? Well, I can look back at these codes as they come back from those people, and you find out that the ballots came back in the order they were delivered. Now, what are the odds? You mail yours first, and the neighbor mails theirs next, and that neighbor mails their next, and that neighbor, you get it? Can't happen. So what does that mean? It got lifted, pilfered, used, put back in the system. So there's a good and bad in everything. Period. Good and bad in everything. I had a guy threaten to kill me for years, stalked me, because he swore with my invention of Q codes and the activation of QR codes and everything else, barcodes, making them work, that I was the person who ushered in the sign of the beast. And he was out to kill me. So don't get wild on some of these things, okay? Everything has both good and bad. And what we're going to talk, I mean, that's today's topic. We're going to talk about good and bad. And we know President Trump's good, but what does he have to do with the merchant of death? Right? So you probably saw this. And let me start here. President Trump posted this. I am very proud to announce that Israel and Hamas have both signed off on the first phase of our peace plan. That means all of the hostages will be released very soon, and Israel will withdraw their troops to an agreed upon line as the first steps towards a strong, durable, and everlasting peace. All parties will be treated fairly. This is a great day for the Arab and Muslim world, Israel, and all surrounding nations, and the United States of America. And we thank the mediators from Qatar, Egypt, and Turkey who worked with us to make this historic and unprecedented event happen. Blessed are the peacemakers. Donald J. Trump. You're going to hear a lot about this. By the way, thank you for the 2 thumbs down. I appreciate it, guys. And so I want to go with you so you understand. I'm going to set the stage for this, okay? You see the wording of stage 1. If you look at it, you see the wording of stage 1. So I want to let you know what is stage 1. So the first element of this is ceasefire and cessation of hostilities. It means that all military operations are to stop right now, and the front lines, wherever anybody is, what they call the front lines, for the most points, is frozen. It cannot move, can't go forward, okay? Then the second part is the release of hostages. Now, some are saying within 72 hours. I can't confirm that yet, so I don't know, but it says after Israel publicly accepts the agreement. This is why Donald J. Trump tweeted on it. It is what confirmed that both parties agreed to it. President Trump agrees, and the clock started ticking, okay? And it says that all hostages held by Hamas, both living and deceased, are to be returned. Then it goes to the third part of this. It's just phase 1 I'm giving to you, okay? You're going to have the prisoner exchanges and releases. So let me tell you what that is, okay? So here's how it works. And so you hear President Trump, pay attention to the words. He says, very soon. This means that all of the hostages will be released very soon. That's why I'm saying this might be a little bit of a floating timeline, but let me give you the backstory to that, okay? It says after the hostages are released, Israel will release Palestinian prisoners, and that's 250 individuals serving life sentences. That is 1,700 Gazans that Israel detained since October 7th, 2023. And then it basically says Hamas has this little hook in there that, well, for every Israel hostage remains returned, then Israel needs to give back to Gazans, 15 deceased Gazans. Now, you might think, what the hell? It's typical BS play. You give me your dad, well, good. Okay, well, this is just Hamas propaganda that, okay, for every Israeli hostage remain we give back, you've got to give us 15 deceased Gazans. I just want you to understand it's propaganda stuff, because what they're really saying is one dead Israeli is worth 15 dead Gazans. You get it? It's crap. But that's the way it's going to come down. That's just the way it's going to come down. And then what happens is after that's done, Israel would withdraw its forces and do redeployment. So Israel will withdraw forces from populated areas in Gaza to a predetermined line, although a full withdrawal will be staged, and it's got to be contingent upon all of the conditions I just told you. That line has not been defined. And then what happens is humanitarian aid and reconstruction begins. This is where it gets wonky, because you see all these people saying Israel is homicide, creating genocide and stuff. People just don't pay attention. Hamas would steal the aid that was constantly there. The reason kids got killed is because Hamas and them would stick them in the tunnels with the weapons, daring Israel to blow them up. Why? So they could say, you killed kids. I'm surprised at how many people buy that BS. Okay? But people do. People do. The big question is, will they let the aid through? What really happened is, as aid was coming in the beginning, when the quote-unquote Gazans, Palestinians went up to get it, they would be shot. It all went to the black market. They wouldn't give, their own people wouldn't give it to their own people. It's a freaking con job. Then Israel said, we can't keep doing this. They're making money off of it. Israel says, we're going to stage the aid. Then you hear, Israel's withholding aid. It's all a con game, folks. You just got to understand how it is. That's why I'm so frustrated with this Jewish hate. Anyway, so humanitarian access is increased. It's going to aid Gaza, and reconstruction efforts will begin once the territories have been secured. And then what happens is there's a freeze of military and aerial operations during all of this phase. And that basically means no bombing, no artillery, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, while all this is done. And so basically it's just a confidence building measure. Okay? The line hasn't been determined or anything like that. So we shall see. But it's an agreement signed, and it will begin. It only takes one BS operation by third parties who want to start hate to go over in Gaza and fire some rocket bats, right? And start it all over again. That's the status of what's going on. So this is monumental. This is a signed peace deal. And you're right, 1,700 people, the reason they rounded them up is because they were involved in attacks on October 7th. They're going to get all those people back alive. They're still going to have their same thoughts about Israel. But this is part of the big con, which so many people are now conned into. It's just freaking ridiculous. I see great minds falling to this psychological warfare. It's just sickening. Now, the reason I said Donald Trump and the Merchant of Death, it's not quite what you think. Yeah, Gaza, Hamas, all of them, they live to die. And this is where I don't know how people don't pay attention. I honestly don't even know how people filter this out. How do grown adults just filter all of this junk out? I'm looking for something. How do people filter this stuff out? How do they not what's the word I'm looking for? How do they just ignore it? How do they just ignore it? If you're a grown adult, you can see with your own eyes. You can see with your own eyes. You can watch everything happening, okay? And you still think it's genocide. It's genocide. Israel is bad. And it's because it's a con. And you watch mainstream news, and now you watch conservative podcasters tell you Israel's bad. I'm going to play you 2 short videos. This is prime examples of 1,700 arrested by Israel going to be sent back alive. But this is a prime example of the education system in Gaza. You okay? Pay attention, then I'll go into the next phase.
السلام عليكم. بدي أعلق على موضوع مهم وبزعل كتير. أنا مش فاهم كيف ناس عرب زينا ومسلمين راحوا يشتغلوا مع اليهود اللي خانوا العهد مع الرسول صلى الله عليه وسلم. يا عربي يا مسلم، كيف بتتعاون مع يهودي قاتل مجرم بتفرقش معاه بقتل طفل أخذ أرضنا وسماها إسرائيل مطبعين. بس أنا بحب أحكي لكم حاجة.
I'll paraphrase. Yeah, you've been there and it's been Israel's land for thousands of years. But in the year 600 and change, Muhammad, some guy that we revere, said God told him, no, that land's yours. I mean, you can see the lunacy of that, right? But you got to understand this hate is institutionalized.
انهم هدول مش منيح وهدول بقتلوا قاعدين بشبابنا. بيحكوا لنا هدول غدارين. وبيحكوا لنا انه هدول بغدرونا، هدول مش منيح. اذا بطعن بدعس عليهم. عمل عمليات. كيف يعني؟ الدعس. عمليات الدعس، عمليات الطعن والاشتباك المسلح في المخيمات.
ايش اكيد هدول العمليات ترفع الراس ولفلسطين. العمليات هاي تاعت الدعس والسكاكين هاي اشي بيرفع الراس لفلسطين.
اذا بدك بطلع بستشهد عادي. انا ان شاء الله اساعد الشباب وان شاء الله اصير مقاوم بالمستقبل مع الدولة.
Newsflash. That is the USAID funded campuses for kids run by the United Nations. All these idiots choose Netanyahu's creating genocide. Ignore stuff like that. So you got to understand it's a culture. It is a culture of death. Now, how does this relate, right? How does this relate? And yes, they're teaching this in American cities now. You're teaching kids this. They teach Gazan kids that Jewish mothers grab Arab kids, drain their blood, and that's what they make the matzah out of. That's what they're taught in those schools. They're taught that Jewish mothers, when their male babies cry all the way up to their teenagers, and they're fussy or mad, that the Jewish mothers sucks the child's wanker. That's taught in school. I've shown you evil. And that's why I say the merchant of death, because you need to understand evil. You need to understand the rest of the story. You got to understand a lot of it's BS packaging, and a lot of it comes compliment of the media, because the media doesn't care. And you go back to that Pulitzer Prize winning photo in the 70s that all of us saw of IDF soldiers pointing guns at a little bitty kid who's throwing a rock at them. Right? You know that photo. Won a Pulitzer. It was staged. They told the kid, pick up a rock and play like you're throwing it, so they could get that image. Total crap. Total con job. Total con job. But out of all of this, there's a ending in peace and light that comes with it. Here's what you need to know. Donald J. Trump has been nominated for the Nobel Peace Prize because of this. Remember, we didn't even know who Barack Obama was, and all of a sudden he steps in at the Democrat convention instead of Hillary. We get him, and even before he's president, he wins the Nobel Peace Prize. Well, Donald J. Trump has been nominated for the Nobel Peace Prize. We're days away from the final decision on who's going to get the Nobel Peace Prize. I personally think Donald J. Trump deserves it. He's done so much in the Middle East, etc. But I want to give you the history so you understand the story, true story behind the Nobel Peace Prize. And it starts with one man. And what happened is this man had to die to learn how to live. That's true. The person you're looking at on my screen is Alfred Nobel. And, you know, in the Bible, it says, let the old man die for the new to begin. Well, literally, Alfred Nobel, which is where the Nobel Peace Prize comes from, in 1888. It was spring. He's in Paris. Everything is kind of waking up from winter. I don't know if you've ever been through Europe or whatever, but you can imagine it, right? Can you imagine carriages cobbling down the street? You know, newsboys were shouting, paper headlines, whatever, right? And so he comes out from his townhouse, which you can still see to this day. It's on Avenue Malakoff. And as he's having his morning tea, he gets the morning paper. And so he comes down to breakfast, just like he did every single morning, kind of scanning the headlines before, you know, reading the day's mails or messages, right? He would have, you know, couriers bring him message and stuff. That's how it was done then, right? So he's sitting there going to have his breakfast, just like maybe the same you do in your morning. And then when he read the headlines and information, he kind of freaked. Le marchand de la mort est mort, the paper read. The merchant of death is dead. He reads in the paper that him, Dr. Alfred Nobel, who made a fortune by finding ways to kill more people faster than ever, died yesterday. Yes, he reads his own obituary. It's right there in the paper. You can imagine he had to blink. He's confused. He read it again and again. And basically the headline is his own freaking name. Alfred Nobel is dead. The merchant of death is dead. Except he's sitting there reading it. He's not dead. See, the paper had made a mistake. The paper had made a big mistake. It wasn't Alfred who died. It was his brother, Ludwig Nobel. Now, he died in Cannes, right? You know, where you see all the big movie premieres and television premieres and the south of France on the beaches and everything. Beautiful people. Cannes, it's actually St. Paul de Vence. It's where I made my youngest son. I manufactured my youngest son at St. Paul de Vence and Cannes. But it was his brother that died, Ludwig. Now, this is a family of inventors, multiple brothers. Now, the reporter who reported the story had been careless. Sound familiar? It's like paper sponsored by MSNBC. The reporter, in a hurry to get the story out, didn't know crap, right? Reported that, confusing the brothers, that Alfred had died, yet it was Ludwig. But it wasn't that the paper got it wrong. It really wasn't even the fact that the paper said he died or the paper said that his brother died. That was just a fact of life. What was at issue was here was a living man faced with his own obituary reading it. And all the world, the newspapers were saying about him is that the merchant of death is dead. It said Dr. Alfred Nobel, who became rich by finding ways to kill more people faster than ever before, died yesterday. You can imagine he read it line for line again and again. And he realized something, that this is the way the world saw him. They weren't acknowledging him as a scientist. They weren't acknowledging him as an inventor, but as a man who profited from destruction. Now, why would they say that? You'll recognize some of these things when I show you. You see them in movies. You've seen them in cartoons. You've seen them everywhere. This is a detonator of the time. Plunge the little plunger down into the box. His family, and what he did is he was basically what you might call the inventor of dynamite and how it could be safely packaged and used. Yeah, the Acme Company. You see them in Bugs Bunny Roadrunner cartoons. That's a throwback to Alfred Nobel. His family, what was really going on, developed the things that actually happened so mankind could manage the land, build roads, build railways, etc. And no, ironically, Alfred did not have a short fuse. The whole family, all kinds of brothers and families, beep, beep, were inventors. They were problem solvers, etc. It's kind of like when I told you about QR codes. You can be an inventor. And when you're a really good inventor, your name becomes invisible. What do I mean? You don't think about Nikolai Tesla when you flip your light switch and turn it on and off. You don't think about him, the fact that he made it work. It's all a publicity game. You normally hear about Einstein, who literally just stole other people's stuff and threw it into his labs. But an inventor just works and creates and works and creates. And if you're really good at what you invent, it becomes invisible to mankind. When you scan something with your mobile phone, when you scan that barcode on the back of a product, right? When you want more information about the company and you take a picture of that barcode and boom, it gives you information. Do you think of me? When you go through a toll booth and you don't have to throw change anymore because there's a code tied between your car and a repeater and the information and reads it and it knows who you are, remembers your credit card and just dings it. Do you think of me? Do you think of me when you do a shopping cart and it no longer has to ask your credit card number? It just knows who you are. Do you think of me when you're on a desktop and you see the screen this big, but you switch to your mobile because you're headed out and it switches to that big because it knows you're on a mobile? Do you think of me? That's what being an inventor is. Your job is to invent and create great things, and you basically become invisible to mankind, but you're everywhere, and they just don't know it. They don't know the story about it. And so Alfred Nobel was faced with the fact that his products are, which gave us railroads, gave us buildings, gave us rock quarries, allowed mankind to conquer the land. Somebody used them, mankind used them for war, which the inventor cannot stop. So yeah, bombs had been around forever. The Chinese made bombs. Where do you think we got firecrackers? Bombs had been around forever. Types of bombs had been around forever. Hell, even in the Middle Ages, they take the stone, soak it in oil, pack and pack and pack like a cookie coating, right? Like your DQ chocolate covering your DQ cone. It'd be in oil and gravel, and they'd light the rock as the trebuchet threw it on fire. And when it hit the castle walls, right, it, with a boom, by sheer force, would destroy the wall and bring the fire. Well, the Nobel family figured out how to do it. And that's what they did. But poor Alfred here reads his damn obituary. And all the media, yeah, folks, the media, all the media cared about was getting people to read a paper and portray him as the man who had profited from destruction. That's how long the media BS has been going on. Okay? So you can imagine for the rest of the day, he just couldn't shake the thought. Sitting there, right? Sitting there. You can imagine the clicking talk, the ticking clocks in the room kind of being like bombs going off in his head. It just seemed louder than usual. It seemed like everybody was watching at him. They didn't see the respected inventor. They didn't see the man who was genius. They saw a man that basically made war, which was not true. Right? He had always told himself, and it was true, and this is what they invented it for, that dynamite was meant for peace, for railroads and canals and tunneling through mountains. And that's where mankind was at this time. Think about manual labor, rock picking through a mountain. They set out to make work better and more profitable and faster. So he envisioned progress. Progress was railroads and canals, all needing dynamite. It was not for bloodshed. But what the obituary showed him is what, through the eyes of the media, saw him as. It didn't matter what his intentions were. They basically said, but yeah, here's the impact of this guy. And what they wrote about that impact in his mind just burned through his mind because it was like written in fire. It'd be like Firestone inventing tires, but because they invented tires, they get blamed for every automobile death in the world. Or Ford. They're responsible for every automobile death in the world. It probably happened in modern day with Democrats, because remember, guns kill people. People don't kill people. Well, Nobel faced this. He didn't sleep. You can imagine he didn't sleep all night. He had to have paced his study. Looking at his shop, he's a scientist. It's glass beakers and vials. It's got experiments in there. It kind of smells like sulfur because he was, in fact, doing experiments, and sulfur was the base of it, right? Tons of patents, which I can relate to. Tons of invention. Massive notes from his ledgers. I look at mine as an inventor. Notes and pages. It's millions and millions of pages in my life. I can imagine what it was in his life. But he's looking at everything he created and thinking, what will I be remembered for when I am truly gone? So you can imagine him sitting there thinking, what's my life stand for? So he thought about his life. And he had been a man of contradictions. Let me tell you why. He was a tough businessman. He built tremendous factories across Europe. In his secret time, he wrote poetry. He's the inventor of explosives, yet in his life, he is a devout pacifist. He was a dreamer, but he was known for never smiling. Ever. One of the traits of Albert Nobel was no smiles. Serious man, get after it. But inside was the man of a dreamer. And those dreams made him one of the richest men in the world. What he saw and what he faced is that riches cannot protect a name at all, and genius does not defend a conscience. I laugh sometimes when I think about even what we've all been through. I tell you, it's about you got to be true to what you are. You've got to have a legacy. I take a lot of flack for talking about PCAPs and Mike Lindell. People said, but he spent $40 million trying to save the country. Okay, if that's what makes you a great patriot, then Obama and ironically Kamala spent the most money ever to try to become president and or become president. Did that make them the best president ever? It's not about the money you spend. It's about the truth, what you stand for. It is a false measurement to say a great American hero spent $40 million trying to save America's elections. The measure of a man is what you truly do, what you stand for. And is it congruent? Is it congruent? Is it congruent? So here's a guy faced with this, right? Here's a guy faced with this. How could he overcome what the media said about him? So what he did is he disappeared from the public. He completely dropped out of public view to soul search. Truthfully, I've done this so many times in my career, it's nuts. And so he started to ask himself questions. What is the duty of a man? What is the duty of a real man who has seen both creation and destruction? In other words, what the hell do I want to be remembered for? It's like you'll read articles about me. He's a treasure hunter. He's a failed treasure hunter. I treasure hunted because I didn't have to work in life. And I went all around the world fueling my personal passions. But is it what I want to be remembered for? No. I have nightmares. I truly do. With all the things that I've done to help foster the internet, to foster, mobile technology and all this other stuff, I have these nightmares sometimes that plague me that our great-grandchildren are going to kind of be these gray kind of goofus people. Going to have one flat hand and one kind of pointy hand. It's going to be for their stylist. They're going to be humped over and they can only look down and look left to right. I'm haunted by that nightmare of what I do in technology. And by the way, Penny and Rumble, sorry for the passing of your sister, but I'm glad you're here, right? With us. And ironic, here we are talking about people passing, but he's asking himself, what am I really known for? And science can help form humanity, but what does science owe humanity? And so what he did is he reached out to family and friends and he wrote letters. He wrote letters to great thinkers that he admired, and he asked these questions. What is the duty of a man who has seen both creation and destruction? What can science owe humanity? Few of those great close friends could actually answer those questions because those are pretty deep questions. Many just said, don't worry about it, forget it. People will forget over time. They'll just forget it, which is kind of what politicians think, right? But he knew better because history not only remembers people for what they build, it remembers people for what they break. I'll go back to that analogy on the PCAPs. Don't brag about how much of your money you've spent trying to fight for election integrity. That is a false, vain measurement. It's just signaling to people, I spent a lot of money. Obama spent a lot of money to become president. Did that make him good? No, he broke the nation. PCAPs and that crap broke election integrity. And so history remembers what we build and what we break. So what Alfred Nobel decided is that he would build something. He would build something greater than dynamite. And so he actually took several years to formulate this in his head, to try to figure out how to do it. And in November of 1895, while he's sitting in just a simple apartment in Paris, he wrote his last will and testament. Right? And you're right, guys. You're so vain, you probably think those PCAPs are about you. So after years of reflecting on it, as he scaled everything down in his life, everything. He scaled down. He's just sitting in a very simple apartment in Paris. He wrote his last will and testament. And the document was very brief. It's what I'm showing you. Barely a few pages, but its consequences are what did reach across centuries and what changed us. And here's what he said. The whole of my remaining realizable, meaning where you can extract the money estate, will be used to endow prizes to those who during the preceding year have conferred the greatest benefit on mankind. You know, this still exists today. Later on, I have a call tied to John Paul DeJorio, you know, Paul Mitchell, billionaire, et cetera, et cetera. I can tell you in the real lives of people, Elon the same way, Larry Ellison the same way. There's a thing called the pledge, and the way the pledge works, it's right now it's about up to 250 individuals and 30 countries. And in the pledge, you pledge as an ultra high net worth person to use in totality 50% of all your holdings to forward the humankind, housing, medicine, education, right? Energy, finding different ways to do it. And that you can look it up. You can read about that later. That's just called the pledge. And so this has been modeled throughout history. And so what Alfred Nobel came up with, okay, is what you now know as the Nobel Prize. And he named 5 fields that he wanted to honor people that have conferred the greatest benefit on mankind. And I can tell you, it's pretty exciting to get a reward. I won the laureate in 2001 for the man most likely to change society as we know it. Not a Nobel. I'd love to win a Nobel, but not a Nobel. But when it's decided upon by your peers and you get a laureate award, even just for being nominated and everything else, you get a laureate award, and it was cool. It also hangs on my wall. Here's the bronzed olive leaf, and here's the gold medal and everything else. And, you know, it feels pretty good. It was nice to be acknowledged for a man that would change society as we know it, right? Alfred Nobel realized, hey, this is what we got to do. So he created 5 fields: physics, chemistry, medicine, literature, and peace. Right? By the way, some of you who know me a little better than others know I have actually a novel, quasi-autobiographic novel that I'm finishing up, considered one of my best works, but it's going to be my loop into fictionalized autobiography. It's about the first person to win the Nobel in physics, chemistry, medicine, literature, and peace at the exact same time, because they're each individual medals. I hope to have that work completed soon. Anyway, but for the 5th one, peace, that's the key here, is where he took the most deliberate care in writing it. And it basically goes like this: to the person who shall have done the most or the best work for fraternity between nations, for the abolition or reduction of standing armies, and for the holding and promotion of the peace process. This medal, I want to read that to you again because it's very important. To the person who shall have done the most or the best work for fraternity between nations, that's number 1, meaning get along. Number 2, for the abolition or at least reduction of standing armies, that's number 2. Number 3 is for holding and promotion of peace congressness. That's number 3. That's our president, folks. You know it, I know it. It disgusts me to see, well, that's what Barack Obama got when we didn't even know who the hell he was. So there is a perversion in there, and Obama was not that for sure at all. But Donald J. Trump is nominated. This was a standard that was set, which you now know as the Nobel Peace Prize. Number 5, it's the number 1. And what happened, understanding his focus was on peace, although he did it in the other areas, which I told you was physics, chemistry, medicine, literature, and peace. Alfred Nobel knew in his will, he gave specific instructions. Specific instructions. He wanted to prove to himself, perhaps more than anyone, that knowledge can heal as well as harm. Knowledge can heal as well as harm. Meaning you can do a lot of harm and stuff. It always comes down to the truth and knowledge, folks. I've always told you that's what it is. It always comes down to speaking truth. Not politics, just plain, clear truth. And so if dynamite had changed the face of war, which it did, then the wealth it brought should now serve the cause of peace. That's what he did. So he finished his will. He sealed it, left instructions that it was to be executed upon his death. That's what he wrote in his will. That's what everybody discovered. It was an act of redemption. It wasn't an act of guilt. It was an act of redemption, but one of purpose. Sadly, that same year that he did this, December 10th, Alfred Nobel in 1896 died quietly in his villa in San Remo, Italy. He was only 2 years older than I am now. So much more he could have given the world. So when his will was read, the reaction, the astonishment was just immediate, right? All of his relatives protested, of course. Governments around the world debated this. Lawyers circled like vultures. Can this even be done? This is not fair to the family. You know how the lawyers are. Well, that's what they did. They fought over it. Lawyers tried to say this document couldn't even be honored. You see, what happened is he left virtually all of his vast fortune, hundreds and hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of millions of dollars, just to create an international foundation for prizes. Newspapers went the opposite direction. The same BS con artist that wrote salacious headlines, "The Merchants of Death is dead," Dr. Alfred Nobel, who made his fortune by finding ways to kill more people faster than ever, died yesterday. The newspapers of the time called him an idiot, called it strange, called him eccentric, said he was a fool. Right? But see, his vision had already been put into place. It withstood. And so in 1901, 5 years after his death, the very first Nobel Prizes were awarded in Stockholm. He was rewriting his history. And so these awards are in Stockholm, Sweden, still where it's held today. And you get your medal awarded to you by the King of Sweden. And so you get a medal, you get a diploma, you get an annual stipend that goes with it for continued work. And it's the King of Sweden that hands the medals and diplomas to scientists, writers, and humanitarians. And each of these medals, of course, bear the face of Alfred Nobel, the man who had once been condemned as the merchant of death. The very first one shows you how times changed, shows you how institutions get hijacked. Anwar Sadat, why we still have this Gaza, Hamas, ISIS shit today, was one of the people in recent history got one. Obama got one. And it's kind of funny how they all become political. But the first year, the very first person to get the Nobel Peace Prize, somebody who truly deserved it, which was truly authentic, and that was Jean-Henri Durant, the founder of Red Cross. Frederick Passy, pioneers in the peace movement. Back when Red Cross wasn't helping illegals across borders and laundering money. Some people say that the Red Cross is gone. I don't know. I have no facts, but the Red Cross is still not the same it used to be then, but back then it meant something. In that moment, Nobel's legacy had forever changed. So when you think of the Nobel today, we don't think of dynamite, we think of discovery. Madame Curie, Marie Curie, we don't think of the fact that he died of cancer, whatever. We think about her work in radiation, or Einstein and his insights into the universe, or Martin Luther King and his dream for nonviolent way to deal with this. Each of them in some way carries a spark lit by Alfred Nobel's decision to transform how the world would remember him. It's easy to see the story as one of guilt, but it's really more than that. It's the story of a man awakening, of a man who read and awoke by reading his very own obituary, forced to confront what truly matters, what any of us will leave behind when the final headline is written. What any of us will leave behind when the final headline is written. With so much BS, liberal headlines and myths about me, I think about this. I think about, what do I stand for? Because I'm telling you, I'm one of these that I work to do my best, and I just refuse to let the system compromise me. Well, this is what Nobel faced. Alfred Nobel's life is a mirror right now for our own age. We're in the middle of two things. We're a wonderful age of invention, but we're a horrible age of consequences. Our creations, whether machines or medicines or ideas, shape the future for a better or worse. And like Nobel, we may one day find that progress without conscience is no progress at all. He once wrote, "If I have 1,000 ideas and only one turns out to be good, I am satisfied." That's a big deal. In the end, he discovered that his best idea ever was not dynamite or engineering or chemistry. It was a belief that those who actually serve humanity deserve to be remembered more than those who destroy it. So when prizes are awarded each year, this one coming up, actually in a few hours relative to everything. And the hall in Stockholm, fills with applause. His name is spoken again and again, but it's not spoken as a warning, but as a testament. A man who was judged by an obituary he did not deserve left behind a legacy that no obituary could contain or suppress. You got to earn it. And that is how Alfred Nobel, the man that was once called to the world in the papers the Merchant of Death, actually became the guardian of peace and progress. The story should remind you that redemption is not found in words or how much money you spend, but in actual deeds. And that even the darkest reputation can be rewritten by light. And that's the key. Dark and light. The darkest reputation can be rewritten by light. Sometimes to change the world, a man must first read what the world has already written about him, and then decide to write a better ending. I hope you enjoyed the history lesson. Most people don't know all the facts. But here we are today. Something that was designed for good, invariably, if you look at some of the people like Obama getting one, was hijacked. A lot of the system is about hijacking everything. Our goal should be to return to good, not equity, but performance. It's not a prize to give everybody who practices chemistry a medal just because they're there. It also has nothing to do with skin, race, color, or religion. It has to do with effectiveness. We've lost that in society. We got to get back to it. We got to stop honoring those that are set up by a political system and get back to people that move the needle. I hope this inspires you to move the needle. I'm going to hop over to locals. I'm going to tell you who's been nominated for the Nobel Peace Prize. Could you imagine Greta Thunberg possibly getting one? I'm going to tell you how many people are nominated. I'm going to tell you who the frontrunners are suspected. I find it the most humiliating insult to Albert Nobel and the Nobel Prize that one of the people that helped get Tina Peters incarcerated, saying it was a 6-degree polynomial, 1 out of 8 billion chances to be correct, claims he was nominated for the Nobel Peace Prize. It's a joke. Total joke. And what a disgrace to Alfred Nobel and his memory. Join me over at Locals Next. Watch the chat. I'll give you the link. I'm going to tell you what's at stake, who's leading, etc., for the Nobel Peace Prize that's about to be awarded. Join me there, please.
Would you ever eat government vaccines? Feed your family hormones or antibiotics? Never ever do that to your family. So why buy beef the same way you've always bought beef? You're buying meat glue bonded, hormone-filled, antibiotic-riddled grocery store meat. Say no to supermarket medicated Franken meats and say hello to NeverEverBeef.club. Always 100% USDA prime or high choice. That's restaurant grade. Never Ever is not ever just select beef or even standard or ungraded store branded meat. It's simply the very best cut and tasting steak you have ever had. We have never ever given our herd hormones, antibiotics, or even mRNA vaccines. Never ever. Pure blood genetics. We've raised our herds this way for over 30 generations. They simply have never, ever had antibiotics, hormones, or killer vaccines. Grass-fed the way nature intended, in almost 500,000 acres of high pasture environments. Finished off with non-modified feed crops we grow ourselves. We even own our own 210,000 square foot processing plant. And as an added bonus for our NeverEverBeef.Club members, we age our steaks in our state-of-the-art 780,000 cubic foot aging facility. Only top restaurants do that, so they can charge you $100 or more for a little bitty steak. We age our meat because we want you to have the very best restaurant quality USDA prime or high choice, pure blood, purebred beef at a price your family can afford in these financially challenging times. Sure, you can keep paying the price for supermarket cheap, standard, and ungraded store meat brands if you love feeding your family Frankenmeat. So never ever settle for less. Join our NeverEverBeef.Club. Take control of your health and your family food supply right now. Join NeverEverBeef.Club. We are real people with real families just like you. So we personally customize your order right over the phone. Now that's customer service. And there is absolutely no obligation when we call. You decide what bundle is best for your needs. No hormones, antibiotics, or even mRNA vaccines. Never had them and never ever will. Never ever cut corners on your food supply or family's health. Join NeverEverBeef.Club now